right. හැමෝටම අයබෝවන් කියලා පිළිගන්නවා. ඉතින් අද මම ඔයාලට අරන් ආවා අපි ෆයිනෑන්ෂියල් මැනේජ්මන්ට් සබ්ජෙක්ට් එකේ පාස් පේපර්ස් ටිකක් ඩිස්කස් කරන්න. ඉතින් මේ පාස් පේපර්ස් ඩිස්කස් කරද්දී මම අපි ඔක්කොම පාස් පේපර්ස් ටික ඩිස්කස් කරනවා අපිට දැනට අවైలබල් තියෙන. ඒ වගේම තමයි කියන්න ඕනේ මම මේ පාස් පේපර්ස් වලින් ඩිස්කස් කරන්නේ තියරි ක්වෙස්චන්ස් විතරයි. හේතුව තමයි දැන් ගොඩක් අයට කැල්කියුලේෂන්ස් ඇත්තටම සෑහෙන අමාරුයි. හැබැයි තියරිස් ටික තේරුම් ගත්තා නම් ඒගොල්ලන්ට ක්වෙස්චන්ස් නැත්නම් පාස් ඔයගොල්ලන්ගේ පේපර් එකේදී එක්සෑම් එකේදී හොඳට තියරිස් ටික ලියාගත්තොත් අනිවාර්යයෙන්ම මේ සබ්ජෙක්ට් එක පාස් වෙන්න පුළුවන්. ඒකෙන් තමයි මම මේ තියරි ටික කතා කරන්නේ සහ තියරි ටික හොඳට තේරුම් ගන්න අවශ්‍යයි. ඉතින් මොකද දැන් මම පෙන්නන්නම් දැන් අනිවාර්යයෙන්ම අපේ දීලා තියෙන හැම පාස් පේපර් එකකම දීලා තියෙන පේපර්ස් වල පළවෙනි ක්වෙස්චන් එක අනිවාර්යයෙන්ම තියරි ක්වෙස්චන් එකක්. ඊට පස්සේ ඒ විතරක් නෙමෙයි තියරි ක්වෙස්චන් පළවෙනි ක්වෙස්චන් එක ඇතුළේ විතරක් නෙමෙයි අපිට හම් වෙන අනිත් ක්වෙස්චන්ස් වලින් අපි සම්පූර්ණ ක්වෙස්චන්ස් පහක් ලියන්න ඕනේ. එතකොට පළවෙනි එක ලියලා අපි අනිත් ඒවානුත් අපි තියරි ටික විතරක් කවර් කරගත්තොත් අපිට පළවෙනි එකෙන් ලකුණු 20ක් සහ අනිත් පේපර්ස් අනිත් තියෙන ක්වෙස්චන්ස් වලින් ටෝටල් ලකුණු 20න් අපිට ලකුණු 9ක් 10ක් වගේ ප්‍රමාණයකට යන්න පුළුවන්. එතකොට හැමතිස්සෙම බලන්න වැඩියෙන් තියරිස් අහලා තියෙන ක්වෙස්චන්ස් වලට තියරි වලට වැඩියෙන් ලකුණු ඇලොකේට් වෙලා තියෙන ක්වෙස්චන්ස් වලට ලියන්න. දැන් මෙතන මේ ක්වෙස්චන් 4 එක ඇවිල්ලා මෙතන දින ලකුණු 9ක් මෙතනට වෙන් කරලා තියෙන්නේ ඒගොල්ලෝ තියරි වලට. ඊට පස්සේ දැන් මෙතන ගත්තොත් එහෙම මේ ක්වෙස්චන් 5 එකේ තුන්වෙනි ෆස්ට් එක 3 මාර්ක්ස් වල එකක්. ඉතින් ඒ වගේ අපිට ගොඩක් වෙලාවට අපි හරියට questions අපි answers ලියන්න තෝරගත්තොත් අපිට මේක cover කරගන්න පුළුවන්. ඉතින් මම බලාපොරොත්තු වෙනවා වෙන තව කවර් එකේ පුළුවන් කෙනෙක් ඉන්නවා නම් calculations ටිකක් මේ වගේ කුප්පියක් හරි මොකක් හරි කරයි කියලා. ඉතින් අපි මේකේ මම කතා කරන්න බලාපොරොත්තු වෙන්නේ theory aspect එක විතරයි. ඉතින් ඒකින්ද සහ අනිත් එක තමයි අපි දැන් calculations කරද්දී සමහර වෙලාවට calculations වල යම්කිසි තැනක හිර වුණොත් අපිට එතනින් එහාට ලියා ගන්න අමාරුයි. හැබැයි theories එහෙම නෙමෙයි අපිට ලියන්න පුළුවන් නම් අපේ theory එක ඔළුවේ තියෙනවා නම් අපි ඔළුවට දාගත්තා නම් අපිට ඒක ලියන්න පුළුවන් perfect. කොට calculations වගේ නෙමෙයි theories lazy. ඒක හින්දා මම theories ගැන කතා කරන්නේ. ඉතින් මේ theories කතා කරද්දී මම මේකට answers කොහොමද එන්නේ කියන එක මම model answers හදලා තියෙනවා. එතකොට මේ model answers එක මම discuss කරන්නම්. right එහෙනම් අපි අපේ වැඩේට එමු. ඉස්සෙල්ලාම මම කතා කරන්නේ 20යි 21 බැච් එකට දීපු පාස් පේ ඒගොල්ලන්ට දීපු පේපර් එක. ඉතින් මේක ඇවිල්ලා 2022 තමයි මේක මේ තිබිලා තියෙන මේ පේපර් එක 2022 ජූන් වල. එහෙනම් අපි වෙමු පළවෙනි ක්වෙස්චන් එකට. එතකොට පළවෙනි ක්වෙස්චන් එකේ මේකේ අහලා තියෙනවා අපෙන් ගොඩක් වෙලාවට අනිවාර්යයෙන්ම මේ ටිකම තමයි මේ ළඟ දේවල් මම තමයි මතක තියෙන ගොඩක් පාස් පේපර්ස් වල බලපුවම මට තේරුණා මේ ඒරියාස් ටික තමයි හැම එකකම හැම පේපර් එකේම පළවෙනි ක්වෙස්චන් එකට අහලා තියෙන්නේ මේ ඒරියාස්මයි. right මේකෙන් තමයි මම මේ මොඩල් ආන්සර්ස් ටිකකුත් දාගත්තේ. හරි. පළවෙනි එකේ අහනවා අපේ පළවෙනි ක්වෙස්චන් එකේ first subsection එකෙන් අහනවා under A briefly discuss the primary objective of the firm. Organization එක primary objective එක මොකක්ද? Now let's move into the model answer. The primary objective of a firm is to maximize shareholder wealth or shareholder value. The organization එක නැත්නම් firm එක primary objective එක වෙන්නේ shareholder wealth maximization. Right? එතකොට this means that firm aims to maximize the long-term financial value of the business for its owners, the shareholders. Shareholder wealth is typically measured by the market value of the firm's shares. Maximizing shareholder wealth involves making decisions that enhance the profitability and growth prospects of the firm. This includes achieving sustainable profit, increasing the firm's market share, expanding into new markets, and effectively managing resources and risk. By pursuing these objectives, the firm seeks to generate higher returns for its shareholders. It is important to note that while shareholder wealth maximization is the primary objective, firms also need to consider the interest of other stakeholders, such as employees, customers, suppliers, and the wider community to maintain long-term sustainability and ethical business practices. However, the primary focus remains on creating value for shareholders. right එතකොට ඒක විදිහට තමයි අපිට පළවෙනි එහෙම නැත්නම් මේ primary objective of the firm කියන එක අහුවොත් එහෙම අපිට මොකද්ද prime objective firm එක primary objective එක මොකද්ද කියන එක අහුවොත් අපිට මේ විදිහට answer එකක් build up කරගන්න පුළුවන්. Then අපි යමු second question එක බලන්න. Conflict of interest is the most observable fact that Sri Lanka faced in financial decision makings in recent past? Do you agree? Briefly comment. Comment කරන්න කියලා තියෙනවා. බලමු. Conflict of interest is the most observable fact that Sri Lanka faced in financial decision makings in recent past. Do you agree? Conflict of interest refers to a situation where an individual or entity has competing interests that could potentially compromise their objectivity or ability to act in the best interest of others. In the context of financial decision making, conflict of interest can arise when individuals or organizations prioritize personal gain or the interest of particular group over the broader interests of stakeholders. However, it is worth noting that managing conflicts of interest is a critical aspect of corporate governance and regulatory frameworks. Transparency, accountability, and effective regulatory oversight are essential in mitigating the impact of conflicts of interest and ensuring fair and ethical financial decision making. ඉතින් මේ ඔයාලා දන්නවා දැන් conflict of interest කියලා කියන්නේ organisation එක අපි agent ලා ඉන්නේ organisation කියන්නේ shareholder ගේ agent කෙනෙක් විදිහට වැඩ කරන කෙනෙක් තමයි manager කෙනෙක් කියන්නේ. ඒතකොට managers ලා shareholder wealth එක maximize කරන්න තමයි බලන්න ඕනේ. But in the real world managers ලා මේ stakeholders එමෙතන shareholders ලගේ wealth maximization කරන්න try කරනවා වගේම තමයි එයාලා their own interest එකටත් වැඩ කරනවා. ඒ කියන්නේ වැඩියෙන් පඩි ඕනේ ඒගොල්ලන්ට වැඩියෙන් මොන හරි benefits ඕනේ අන්න ඒ වගේ. ඒතකොට වැඩි පඩි ඉල්ලනවා නම් වැඩි benefits ඒගොල්ලෝ බලාපොරොත්තුෙන් වැඩ කරනවා නම් මොකද වෙන්නේ? shareholder wealth එක නැත්නම් profit අපිට generate කරන්න තියෙන ability එක අඩු වෙනවා. ඉතින් අන්න ඒකට තමයි අපි කියන්නේ. එතකොට ඒ කියන්නේ shareholders ලගේ interest එකයි managers ලගේ තියෙන interest එකයි අතර පොඩි ඝට්ටනයක් ඇති වෙනවා. අන්න ඒක තමයි කියන්නේ conflict of interest කියලා. Right. With that, let's move to the next question. Briefly explain how the investment and financing decision are interrelated in a corporate firm. We'll see the model answer. Investment decisions and financial decisions are closely interconnected in a corporate firm. Here's a brief explanation of their interrelationship. Let's see what is meant by investment decisions. Investment decisions involve identifying and selecting projects or assets that the firm should invest in. These decisions revolve around allocating the firm's financial resources to different investment opportunities such as capital expenditures, research and development, acquisitions, or other strategic initiatives. The goal of investment decision is to maximize the value and profitability of the firm over the long term. Then let's see what is meant by financial decisions. Financial decisions, on the other hand, are concerned with how the firm obtains and manages the necessary funds to finance its investment decisions. These decisions encompass various aspects, which include capital structure, financing options, working capital management, dividend policy, and risk management. The objective of financial decisions is to ensure that the firm has an optimal mix of financing resources, sufficient liquidity, and effective risk management strategies in the place. Then let's see what is the interrelationship of these two decisions, which means investment decisions and the financial decisions, the interrelationship. The interrelation between investment and financial decisions lies in their impact on the firm's overall financial performance and value. Investment decisions require funding, and financial decisions determine how that funding is obtained and managed. The profitability and success of investment decisions are influenced by the firm's financial decisions as the availability and cost of funds impact the feasibility and returns of investment projects. Conversely, financial decisions are influenced by investment decisions since the funding requirements, cash flows, and risk profiles associated with the investments shape the financial strategies and policies adopted by the firm. The financial decisions aim to optimize the capital structure balance the cost of capital and risk, and ensure the availability of sufficient funds to support chosen investments. එතකොට එතනදි කියන්නේ ඇත්තටම දැන් අපි මේක හරිම සරලයි. උදාහරණයක් විදිහට දැන් අපි ආයතනයක ගත්තොත් එහෙම ඕනම ඕගනයිසේෂන් එකක් ගත්තොත් එහෙම මේගොල්ලෝ එක එක දේවල් වල ඉන්වෙස්ට් කරනවා. එතකොට ඉන්වෙස්ට් කරනවා කියන්නේ එයාලා මොකක් හරි ඕගනයිසේෂන් එකේ ඇසෙට් එකක් ගන්න වෙන්න පුළුවන්. එහෙම නැත්නම් එයාලා වෙනත් මොකක් හරි ආයෝජන මාර්ගයක් සරලවම කොටස් වෙළඳ පොලේ ආයෝජනය කරන්න වෙන්න පුළුවන්. අන්න ඒ වගේ එක එක ඉන්වෙස්ට්මන්ට් කරනවා. මැෂින්ස් ඉන්වෙස්ට් කරනවා. ඒගොල්ලන්ට තියෙන කියන්නේ වත්කම් වලට ඉන්වෙස්ට් කරනවා. වත්කම් වලට අපි ආයෝජන කරනවා. එතකොට ඒ ආයෝජන කිරීමට අපිට අවශ්‍ය වෙන අරමුදල්. ඒක අපි අයිතිකරුවන්ගේ ප්‍රාග්ධයෙන් ගන්නවා වෙන්න පුළුවන්. එහෙම නැත්නම් අපි ණය මොන හරි ගන්නවා වෙන්න පුළුවන්. අන්න ඒ විදිහට. එහෙම නැත්නම් අපි මොන හරි ෂෙයාර්ස් විකුණලා ෂෙයාර්ස් වලින් අපි අරමුදල් ලබා ගන්නවා වෙන්න පුළුවන්. අන්න ඒ වගේ තමයි අපි අරමුදල් සම්පාදනය කරගන්නේ. එතකොට ඔය අරමුදල් සම්පාදනය කරගන්නවා. නැත්නම් අපි ඉන්වෙස්ට්මන්ට් වලට යොදවන්න අවශ්‍ය මුදල් හොයාගන්න එකට අපි කියනවා ෆයිනෑන්ෂියල් ඩිසිෂන්ස්. ඒ මුදල් අපි ගිහින් ආයෝජනය කරන එකට අපි කියනවා ඉන්වෙස්ට්මන්ට් ඩිසිෂන්ස්. එතකොට ඒකේ තියෙන සම්බන්ධතාවය අපි ඉන්වෙස්ට් කරන්න නම් අපි ෆයිනෑන්ස් කරන්න ඕන. අන්න ඒක තමයි මේකේ සරලවම තියෙන කතන්දරය. එතකොට තවදුරටත් මේ මොඩල් එක අපි මොඩල් ආන්සර් ගැන කතා කරනවා නම් conversely financial decisions are influenced by investment decisions since the funding requirements, cash flows and risk profiles associated with investment shape the financial strategies and policies adopted by the firm. The financial decisions aim to optimize the capital structure, balance the cost of capital and risk, and ensure the availability of sufficient funds to support the chosen investments. Overall, effective coordination and alignment between investment and financial decisions are crucial for achieving the firm's goals of maximizing shareholder value, profitability, and long term sustainability. By considering the interdependencies and trade offs between these decisions, firms can make informed choices that enhance their financial performance and strategic position in the market. Right. ඒ විදිහට තමයි ඒ question එකේ answer එක අපි develop කරගන්නේ. Okay, now let's move into the our next question, number D. Briefly explain the role of Central Bank of Sri Lanka to make towards the financial system stability of the country within the prevailing economic condition. ඉතින් සාමාන්‍යයෙන් දැන් මේ වගේ question එකක් අපිටත් එන්න පුළුවන්. ඉතින් මේ question එකකින් අහන්නේ දැන් Central Bank එකේ තියෙන role එක මොකක් සඳහාද? Financial system stability එකට. කියන්නේ අපේ තියෙන මූල්‍ය පද්ධතියේ සමතුලිතභාවය පවත්වාගෙන යන්න සාමාන්‍යයෙන් මොනවාද Central Bank එකක් විසින් කරන්න කියන එක. Right. So as the model answer here, the Central Bank of Sri Lanka plays a crucial role in maintaining financial system stability in the country, especially during prevailing economic conditions. Here's a brief explanation of its role. එතකොට මේගොල්ලෝ කරන දේවල් මම මේ වගේ එක එක කාර්යයන් කීපයක functions කිහිපයකට මම ගත්තා. බලන්න පළවෙනි එක ඇවිල්ලා monetary policy. What is meant by monetary policies? The central bank formulates and implements monetary policy to regulate the money supply, interest rates, and credit conditions in the economy. By adjusting policy rates, such as the repo rate or policy interest rates, the central bank influences borrowing costs, inflation, and economic activity. Through effective monetary policy, the central bank aims to promote price stability, control inflation, and support sustainable economic growth. Next one, financial regulation and supervision. Financial regulation and supervision. What is meant by that is, the central bank is responsible for regulating and supervising financial institutions operating in Sri Lanka, including banks, non-banks, financial institutions, and payment systems. It sets prudential regulations, conducts regular inspections, and enforces compliance with risk management and capital adequacy standards. This oversight helps maintain the stability and integrity of the financial system, safeguarding depositors' funds and promoting sound and efficient financial intermediation. That is the Now let's move into the next role, financial stability monitoring. Financial stability monitoring. What is meant by that is the central bank monitors and assesses potential risks to financial stability such as systematic risk, credit risk, liquidity risk, and market risks. It conducts regular risk assessments, stress tests, and microprudential analysis to identify vulnerabilities and take proactive measures to address them. By monitoring and mitigating risks, the central bank aims to prevent or minimize disruptions to the financial system and maintain its stability. Next role, crisis management and resolution. In the event of financial crisis or instability, the central banks acts as the the lender of last resort and implements crisis management measures. It provides liquidity support to solvent but liquid financial institutions to maintain confidence and stability in the financial system. The central bank also develops resolution frameworks to address the failure or distress of financial institutions in an orderly manner, minimizing the impact on the overall system. Next, rate management. The central bank managed the exchange rate of Sri Lankan rupee to ensure stability and competitiveness in international trade. It may intervene in foreign exchange markets to manage fluctuations and maintain orderly market conditions. A stable exchange rate helps promote confidence, facilitate trade and investment, and contribute to the overall financial system stability. Finally, by performing these roles, the Central Bank of Sri Lanka contributes to the stability of the financial system and supports the overall economic well-being of the country, particularly during prevailing economic conditions. එතකොට මෙතන අපි රෝල් එක ගත්තාම රෝල්ස් කිහිපයක් තමයි කතා කරේ. ඒ රෝල්ස් කතා කරනකොට තමයි monetary policy එක, ඊට පස්සේ financial regulation and supervision, ඊට පස්සේ financial stability monitoring, ඊට පස්සේ crisis management and resolution, finally exchange rate management. ඉතින් ඔය දේවල් කරලා මේ අපේ වර්තමාන ලංකාවේ තියෙන තත්ත්වය monetary standards එහෙම නැත්නම් monetary market එක අපි control කරනවා central bank එක විසින්. Now let's move into the next question. Briefly explain the impact of interest rates fluctuations of the capital market operations of the country. අපි මෙතනදී කතා කරන්නේ මේ ප්‍රශ්نين අහලා තියෙන්නේ දැන් interest rate වෙනස් වෙද්දී ඒක කොහොමද capital market එකේ තියෙන operations වලට බලපාන්නේ. එතකොට අපි මේක ගැන කතා කරන්න සිද්ධීන් කිහිපයක් එහෙම නැත්නම් දේවල් කිහිපයක් ගන්නවා. ඒකට ඒ දේවල් එක්ක තමයි අපි මේකේ මොන වගේ impact එකක් තියෙනවද කියලා කතා කරන්නේ. ඉතින් ඒව ගැන කිව්වොත් එimhe stock market performance එකට තියෙන impact එක, bond market dynamics, investor behavior සඳහා තියෙන impact එක, then after cost of capital and foreign investment flows වලට කොහොමද මේ interest rate fluctuations impact වෙන්නේ කියන එක තමයි අපි කතා කරන්නේ. So model answer එක බලමු අපි. Fluctuations in interest rates can have significant impacts on the capital market operations of a country. Here's a brief explanation of the effects. එතකොට capital market එකේ තියෙන operations තමයි මේ තියෙන්නේ. ඒ operations වලට impact එක ගැන අපි කතා කරන්නේ. පළවෙනි operation එක විදිහට අපි ගන්නවා stock market performance එක. So the model answer, interest rates fluctuations can influence the performance of the stock market. When interest rates rise, it becomes relatively more expensive for companies to borrow and invest, which can lead to decreased corporate profits and lower stock prices. Higher interest rates also make fixed income investments, such as bonds and treasury bills, more attractive compared to stocks, leading investors to shift their investments away from stocks, which can result in decline in stock prices. Conversely, when interest rates fall, it can stimulate borrowing and investment, potentially boosting corporate profits and increasing stock market activity. එතකොට interest rate වැඩි වෙද්දී stock market එකේ තියෙන performance එක අඩු වෙනවා. ඒ වගේම interest rate අඩු වෙද්දී stock market performance එක වැඩි වෙනවා. stock market එක ගැන කතා කරේ. Then after bond market dynamics. Bond market එකට දැන් අපි මෙතන කතා කරමු අනිත් පැත්තට මේ පැත්තේ bond market එක ගැන කතා කරනවා. Interest rate fluctuations directly impact the bond market. Bond prices and interest rates have an inverse relationship, meaning that when interest rates rise, bond prices tend to fall and vice versa. This is because existing bonds with lower interest rates become less attractive compared to newly issued bonds with higher rates. When rates increase, investors demand higher yields on bonds, leading to a decrease in the price of existing bonds. Conversely, when the interest rates decline, bond prices tend to rise. So interest rate එක පහළ වැටෙද්දී bond prices වැඩි වෙනවා. Interest rate එක ඉහළ යද්දී bond prices අඩු වෙනවා. Then investor behavior මත තියෙන බලපෑම අපි කතා කරනවා. Investor behavior as the model answer. Interest rate fluctuations can significantly influence investor behavior and investment decisions. Higher interest rates generally make fixed income investment more attractive due to higher returns they offer. This can lead investors to reallocate their portfolios away from riskier assets such as stocks and towards fixed income securities, resulting in reduced demand for equities. Conversely, when interest rates decrease, investors may be more inclined to invest in riskier assets like stocks, seeking higher returns than those available in the fixed income investment. Then after cost of capital. Changes in interest rates affect the cost of borrowing for companies and individuals. When interest rates rise, the cost of capital increases. Interest rates vary with the cost of capital vary, making it more expensive for businesses to finance their operations and invest in capital projects. This can impact business profitability and investment decisions. Conversely, when interest rates decline, the cost of borrowing declines, potentially stimulating business, investment, and economic growth. Then foreign investment flows. Interest rate differentiates between countries can influence foreign investment flows. Higher interest rates in a country can attract foreign investors seeking better returns on their investment. This can lead to increased capital inflows into the country's capital market. Conversely, if a country's interest rates decline relative to other countries, it may result in capital outflows as investors seek higher returns elsewhere. Overall, interest rate fluctuations can have wide-ranging effects on the capital market operations of a country, impacting stock prices, bond prices, investor behavior, the cost of capital, and foreign investment flows. It is important for market participants to closely monitor and assess the implications of interest rate changes on their investment decisions and portfolios. ඉතින් ඔය විදිහට තමයි මේ capital market එකේ තියෙන දේවල් වලට interest rate fluctuations impact වෙන්නේ. Right. Then after we are going to the next question. එතකොට අපිට ඊළඟ question එක මම මෙතනින් පෙන්නන්නම් question paper එකේ. ඉතින් මේකේ බලන්න question 2 එකේ පළවෙනි ප්‍රශ්නය අපෙන් අහලා තියෙනවා what briefly explain what is meant by compounding and discounting of cash flow. cash flow එකක් compound කරන එක සහ cash flow එකක් discount කරනවා කියන්නේ මොකක්ද කියලා අහලා තියෙන්නේ ලකුණු දෙකක්. ඉතින් ඒකට මම මෙතන ටිකක් ලොකු උත්තරයක් දාලා තියෙන්නේ මොකද වඩාත් හොඳින් තේරුම් ගන්න. නමුත් මෙච්චර ලොකු උත්තරයක් ඕන වෙන්නේ නැහැ. Right. අපි බලමු as the model answer. Compounding and discounting are concepts used in financial mathematics to evaluate the value of cash flows over time. Here's a brief explanation of each. Compounding of cash flows. Compounding of cash flows කියන්නේ මොකක්ද කියලා බලමු. Compounding refers to the process of recalculating the future value of an investment by adding the interest earned or the growth rate of the initial amount. It assumes the investment earns a return and that return is reinvested to earn additional returns over time. The compounding effect allows the investment to grow exponentially. Okay. Compounding refers to the process of calculating the future value of an investment or cash flow by adding the interest earned or growth rate to the initial amount. Then compound කර කර යනවා කියලා කියන්නේ අපි දැන් අපි මොකක් හරි ඉන්වෙස්ට්මන්ට් එකක් කරපුවාම ඒ ඉන්වෙස්ට්මන්ට් එකේදී ඔයාලා දන්නවා අපිට මොකක් හරි ඉන්ට්‍රස්ට් එකක් හම්බ වෙනවා. එහෙනම් අපිට රිටර්න් එකක් හම්බ වෙනවා. ඉතින් ඒක අපි එතනින් නවත්තන්නේ නැතුව එහෙම නැත්නම් ඒ රිටර්න් එක ඒ ඉන්ට්‍රස්ට් එක එළියට ගන්න නැතුව ආයේ ඉන්ට්‍රස්ට් එක එකතු කරනවා ඒ අපේ ඉනිෂියල් ඉන්වෙස්ට්මන්ට් එකට. අන්න ඒක තමයි අපි කියන්නේ කම්පවුන්ඩ් කරනවායි කියලා. ඒතර බලන්න උදාහරණයක් දීලා තියෙනවා. For example, if you invest 1,000 at an annual interest rate of 5% compounded annually, after 1 year, your investment will grow to 1,050. Right? එතකොට දැන් අපි අද 1000ක මේ ඉන්වෙස්ට් එකක් කරොත් එimhe 105ක ඉන්ට්‍රස්ට් රේට් එකක් යටතේ අපිට අවුරුද්දකට පස්සේ මේ අපේ ඉන්වෙස්ට්මන්ට් එක 1050ක් වෙනවා. මොකද අපිට මේ 105ක ඉන්ට්‍රස්ට් එක හම්බ වෙන හින්දා. ඔරිජිනල් amount එකට 105ක ඉන්ට්‍රස්ට් එකක් එකතු වෙලා. In the subsequent years, the interest earned will be based on the increased balance leading to a compounding effect. එතකොට ඊළඟ අවුරුද්දේදී අපි බලන්නේ ආයි මේ 18 නෙමෙයි මේ 1000යි මෙතනින් 105 එකතු වෙච්ච 1050ට තමයි අපි ආයේ interest rate එක calculate කරන්නේ. ඔන්න ඔක තමයි compounding of cash flows කියලා කියන්නේ. Then what is discounting of cash flows? Discounting of cash flows. Discounting is the opposite concept of compounding. It involves calculating the present value of future cash flows by applying a discount rate. The discount rate represents the opportunity cost of the required rate of return for an investment. Discounting is used to determine the value of future cash flows in today's terms, considering the time value of money. It recognizes that money received in the future is worth less than money received today due to factors such as inflation and the ability to invest and earn a return. For example, if you expect to receive 1,000 1 year from now and the discounting rate is 10%, the present value of that amount would be 909.09. This means that the future cash flow of 1,000 is worth 909.09 in today's terms. එතකොට දැන් ඩිස්කවුන්ටිං කරලා කියන්නේ අපි අනාගතයේදී ලැබෙන්න තිබෙන මුදලක වර්තමානය ගණනය කිරීම. ඒකට අපි ඩිස්කවුන්ටිං ෆැක්ටර් එකක් දාලා හදනවා. එහෙනම් නැත්නම් අපිට ඉන්ට්‍රස්ට් රේට් එකක් දුන්නොත් එහෙම ඒක අපි ඩිස්කවුන්ට් කරලා බලනවා. උදාහරණයක් විදිහට ඔයාට අද ඉඳන් අවුරුද්දක් ගියාම 1000ක් හම්බෙන්න තියෙනවා නම් ඒ 1000 අද අගය කීයද කියලා බලනවා. ඒ කියන්නේ දැන් අපි අද 100කට ගත්ත දේවල් අපිට තව අවුරුද්දකින් ඒ දේවල්ම 100කට ගන්න බැහැනේ. අන්න ඒ වගේ ඒ කියන්නේ ඒ අවුරුද්දේදී අපිට 800කට ගන්න මේ සෝරි ඒ අවුරුද්දේ අපිට 1200කට ගන්න ඕන දේවල් අද වෙද්දී අපිට රුපියල් 1000කින් ගන්න පුළුවන් වෙන්න පුළුවන්. අන්න ඒ අද වෙද්දී කීයක් ඕනේද කියන එක බලන එක තමයි මේ discounting cash flows කියලා කියන්නේ. Right? Both compounding and discounting are fundamental concepts in finance and are used in various financial calculations such as determining investment returns, evaluating the value of projects, and assessing the attractiveness of investment opportunities. Now let's move into the next question. Question number 3. එතකොට අපි paper එකෙන් අපිට question 2 එකේ theory part එකක් අහලා දෙක විතරයි. අපි ඊට පස්සේ යනවා question number 3 එකේ first one එකට. Does a well-diversified portfolio of equity securities reduce the total risk of investment always? අපි අහනවා මේ හොඳ diversify කරපු portfolio එකකින් අපිට හැමතිස්සෙම reduce risk එකක්ද හම්බෙන්නේ? ඒක explain කරන්න කියලා කියනවා. Right. බලමු model answer එක ටිකක් ලොකු model answer එකක් තියෙන්නේ. නමුත් ලකුණු දෙකකට මෙච්චර දේවල් නම් ලියන්න ඕනේ නැහැ. Right. අපිට මේක පොඩ්ඩක් පොඩි කරලා ලියන්න පුළුවන්, but for you to understand I will describe this in more. Right. A well-diversified portfolio of equity securities has the potential to reduce the total risk of investment, but it does not guarantee complete risk elimination. Here's an explanation. අපිට reduce risk එක reduce කරන්න පුළුවන්, හැබැයි complete eliminate වෙන්නේ නැහැ. අයියේ diversification is the strategy of investing in a variety of assets or securities across different industries, sectors, and regions. The purpose of diversification is to reduce risk associated with individual investments by spreading it across a broader portfolio. When one investment performs poorly, others may perform better, thereby offsetting potential losses. The key principle behind diversification is that not all investments move in the same direction or are affected by the same factors at the same time. By holding a diverse mix of investments, such as stocks from different industries, geographic regions, or market capitalizations, the portfolio's overall risk can be reduced. Diversification can help mitigate two types of risk. එතකොට මේ දේවල් අමතරව දාන දේවල් මොකක්ද දැනගන්නට බලන්න අපිට risk වර්ග දෙකක් තියෙනවා. ඒ දෙකම අපිට diversify කරොත් එහෙම අපිට මේ දෙක mitigate කරන්න පුළුවන් කියලා කියනවා. ඒ දෙක තමයි systematic risk and unsystematic risk. බලමු systematic risk කියන්නේ මොකක්ද කියලා. Also known as market risk or non-diversifiable risk. Systematic risk refers to risks that affect the overall market or economy. Examples include economic recessions, political events, interest rate changes, or natural disasters. Diversification can potentially help reduce systematic risk to some extent. Then unsystematic risk. What is meant by unsystematic risk means also known as specific risk or diversifiable risk. Unsystematic risk is unique to individual securities or sectors. It arises from factors specific to a company or industry, such as management issues, product failures, or competitive dynamics. Diversification can effectively reduce unsystematic risk by spreading investments across different securities, as the performance of one investment may not significantly impact the overall portfolio. However, it is important to note that there are limits to the risk reduction achieved through diversification. Some risks, such as systematic risks, cannot be eliminated through diversification as they affect the entire market. Additionally, extreme market events such as financial crisis or systematic shocks can lead to a high degree of correlation among different assets, limiting the effectiveness of diversification during such periods. Moreover, there are still risks that remain even in a well diversified portfolio, such as market volatility, liquidity risk, and changes in investor sentiment. These factors can impact the overall performance of the portfolio even if individual investments are diversified. In summary, while a well-diversified portfolio of equity securities can potentially reduce investment risk, it does not eliminate all risk. Diversification is an important risk management strategy, but investors should consider other factors and strategies such as asset allocation, risk tolerance, and investment goals in constructing their portfolios. Right. So with that, third question එකත් අපි කතා කරන්න තිබ්බ තීරික කතා කරා. Now let's move into the question number 4. එතකොට question number 4 එකේ බලන්න first questions තුනම A, B and C මේ තුනම අපෙන් අහලා තියෙන්නේ theory questions ලකුණු 9ක් හම්බ වෙනවා. හරි. අපි මේවා ටික දාලා තියෙන model answers කතා කරමු. Question number 4, question A. Explain briefly what is meant by credit rating and its importance to issuers and investors. මේ credit rating කියන්නේ මොකක්ද කියන එක අපෙන් අහලා තියෙනවා. බලමු. A credit rating refers to an assessment of credit worthiness of a borrower or issuer of debt securities such as governments, corporations, or financial institutions. It is an evaluation conducted by rating credit agencies that assigns a rating to indicate the borrower's ability to repay its debt obligations. The credit rating is typically expressed as a letter, grade, or symbol, such as AAA, AA, or single A, triple B, etc., which each grade representing a different level of credit worthiness and associated risk. The ratings are determined based on various factors, including financial stability, cash flow, debt levels, industry outlook, management quality, and economic conditions. The importance of credit ratings can be understood from the perspective of issuers or the borrowers and investors. Issuers la saha borrowers la sorry issuers la saha investors la ta අපි බලමු මොකද්ද මේක important වෙන්නේ මේ credit rating කියන එක. Importance to issuers. Access to capital, market perception, risk management. Then let's discuss about access to capital. A favorable credit rating enhances the issuer's reputation and credibility in the financial markets, making it easier to attract investors and access capital at lower borrowing costs. Higher credit ratings can lead to lower interest rates on debt issuance, resulting in reduced borrowing expenses for the issuer. Market perception. Credit ratings provide a measure of confidence and trust to potential investors as they reflect an independent assessment of the issuer's creditworthiness. A higher rating can enhance the issuer's market perception, attracting more investors and improving market liquidity for its debt securities. Then, risk management. Credit ratings assist issuers in evaluating their own credit risk and managing their debt portfolio. By understanding the risk associated with their borrowing capacity, issuers can make informed decisions regarding debt structure, refinancing options, and overall financial strategy. Then we will discuss about the importance to investors. Then risk assessment, investment decision making, regulatory requirements will be discussed under the importance to the issuers. First one, risk assessment. Credit ratings provide investors with an indication of credit risk associated with a particular issuer or debt instrument. Investors rely on credit ratings to assess the likelihood of timely interest and principal repayments. Higher rated bonds are considered less risky, while lower rated bonds are higher risk but may offer potentially higher yields. Then decision making. Credit ratings serve as a tool for investors to compare and evaluate different investment options. Ratings help investors in assessing the relative credit worthiness of issuers and making informed investment decisions based on their risk appetite and desired returns. Then regulatory requirements. Institutional investors such as pension funds, insurance companies, and mutual funds often have regulatory requirements or investment policies that mandate minimum credit rating for their investment. Meeting these requirements ensures compliance and helps manage risk within their investment portfolios. Then finally, it is important to note that credit ratings have limitations and they are not infallible indicators of default risk. Investors should consider multiple factors and conduct their own analysis before making investment decisions. Additionally, credit ratings are subject to periodic revisions based on changing market conditions and issuer performance. So they should be regularly monitored for updates. So likewise, අපිට ඒකේ A part question එක complete කරගන්න පුළුවන්. Then after ඊළඟ question එකෙන් අපි අහලා තියෙනවා compare the features of common stock against features of debenture. common stock සහ debenture එකක් අතර තියෙන features ගැන අපිට comparison එකක් දෙන්නලු. හරි. ඒකට මම common stock සහ debentures ගැන කතා කරනවා වෙන වෙනම. බලමු අපි common stocks කියන්නේ මොනවද කියලා. ownership and voting rights. common stocks වලට අපි දන්නවා ownership and voting right එකක් තියෙනවා. right ඊට පස්සේ ඒකට dividends අපි pay කරනවා. ඊට පස්සේ අපි මොනවද capital appreciation එකක් හම්බ වෙනවා මේවට. ඊට පස්සේ මේවා risk and return එක ගැන කතා කරන්න ඕන අපි. and there is a limited liability. බලමු common stock වල features, ownership and voting rights. Common stock represents ownership in a company and typically grants shareholder voting right in corporate decision-making processes, such as electing the board of directors. Then dividends. Common stockholders may receive dividends which are a portion of the company's profit distributed to shareholders. However, dividends are not guaranteed and are subject to the company's financial performance and management decisions. Capital appreciation. Common stockholders have the potential for capital appreciation if the company's stock prices increase over time. They can profit from selling their shares at a higher price than their initial purchase price. Risk and returns. Common stockholders bear a higher level of risk compared to other forms of investment. They are last in line to receive payments in case of bankruptcy or liquidation. However, common stocks also offer the potential for higher returns compared to fixed income securities. Limited liability. Shareholders' liability is typically limited to their investment in the common stock. They are not personally liable for the company's debts or legal obligations. Right, shareholders, when we're talking about the common stocks also, common shares also, there is a limited liability. Right, then let's move into the features of debenture. So debenture is a debt instrument and it has fixed interest payments and there is no ownership or voting roles for the debentures. And also we have to consider the repayment of principal and then the seniority and security. Then it has lower risk but also the lower returns and there's a tax treatment. Right. Okay, let's discuss them in detail. As a debt instrument, a debenture is a type of debt instrument issued by a company or government entity to raise capital. It represents a loan made by the debenture holder to the issuer. Then fixed interest payments. Let's discuss. Debenture holders pursue periodic interest payments at a fixed rate for the duration of debenture's terms. These payments are typically made semi-annually or annually. No ownership or voting rights. Unlike common stocks, debentures holders do not have ownership right or voting privileges in the issuing company. Then repayment of principal. At the maturity date, the debenture issuer is obliged to repay the principal amount to the debenture holders. The repayment can occur in a lump sum or through periodic installments. Then after seniority and security, debentures can be classified as secured or unsecured. Secured debentures are backed by specific assets of the issuer, providing additional security to the debenture holders in case of default. Unsecured debentures are not backed by the specific assets and rely on general creditworthiness of the issuer. Then lower risk and lower returns. Debentures are considered less risky compared to common stocks. Debenture holders have a higher claim on the issuer's assets in case of default. However, debentures generally offer lower returns compared to equities. Then tax treatment. The interest income received from debentures is typically subject to income tax, depending on the applicable tax laws and the investor's jurisdiction. It is jurisdiction, right? It is important to note that specific features of common stocks and debentures can vary based on the issuing company, country, and the terms of the instrument. Investors should carefully evaluate the terms and risks associated with each investment before making the decision. Okay, so with that, we are ending the part B also. Now let's move into the C, kind of a long one. The values of outstanding bonds change whenever the going rate of interest rate change. In general, short-term interest rates are more volatile than long-term interest rates. Therefore, short-term bond prices are more sensitive to interest rate changes than are long-term bond prices. Is this statement true or false? And give the explanations. Right. Bala. බලමු මේ ස්ටේට්මන්ට් එක හරිද වැරදිද? ඔව් මේ ස්ටේට්මන්ට් එක it is generally true. Short-term bond prices tend to be more sensitive to interest rate changes compared to long-term bond prices. This sensitivity is primarily driven by two factors, which are maturity and reinvestment risk. Then discuss about the maturity. Short-term bonds have a shorter time to maturity, meaning that their cash flows are received sooner compared to long-term bonds. As a result, change in interest rates have a more immediate impact on the present value of the future cash flows of short-term bonds. This sensitivity is known as duration risk. Reinvestment risk. When short-term bonds mature, investors have to reinvest the proceeds at prevailing interest rates, which can which can fluctuate. If interest rates have decreased, the investor may have to reinvest at a lower rate, leading to a lower yield on the reinvested funds. This reinvestment risk is higher for short-term bonds as the reinvestment occurs more frequently compared to long-term bonds. On the other hand, long-term bond prices are generally less sensitive to interest rates due to the following reasons. In mere reasons in the long-term bond එකක් සාමාන්‍යයෙන් ඒකේ තියෙන prices interest change වලට එච්චරම අඩු sensitivity එකක් තමයි තියෙන්නේ. ඒකට හේතුව longer maturity, yield curve කියන දේවල්. හරි. Longer maturity, long-term bonds have a longer time to maturity, which spreads out the impact of interest rate changes over a longer period. This longer time horizon reduces the immediate impact on the present value of future cash flows. Then yield curve. The yield curve is the graphical representation of interest rates for different maturities. It typically slopes upward, indicating that long-term interest rates are higher than short-term interest rates. The higher starting yield of long-term bonds provides a cushion against interest rate changes, making them less sensitive. Right. Finally, however, it is important to note that the relationship between bond prices and interest rate is not solely determined maturity. Other factors such as coupon rate, credit quality, market conditions, and investor sentiment can also influence bond price sensitivity to interest rate changes. Moreover, in certain situations, such as periods of significant market volatility or changes in market expectations, the relationship between short-term and long-term bond prices sensitivity to interest rate change can deviate from the general platform. Therefore, while short-term bond prices are generally more sensitive to interest rate changes compared to long-term bond prices, investors should consider a comprehensive analysis of relevant factors and market conditions when evaluating bond prices. Bond price sensitivity. Right. With that, we discuss the fourth question also. And then අපි යමු fifth question එකට. Right. The fifth question එකේ first question එක ඇවිල්ලා essay type එකක් අපිට theories ලියන්න තියෙන්නේ. බලමු. The cost of capital is an important ingredient in both investment decision making by the company management and the valuation of company by investors. Explain the statement. Let's see the model answer. Right. The cost of capital plays a crucial role in both investment decision making by the company's management and the valuation of company by investors. Here's an explanation of how it affects the both perspectives. අපි බලමු කොහොමද මේක බලපාන්නේ කියලා. Investment decision making by the management. The cost of capital is the average rate of return that a company must earn on its investment to satisfy its investors and providers of capital. It represents the cost of obtaining funds from various sources such as equity shareholders and debt holders. When making investment decisions, management evaluates Yes. When making investment decisions, management evaluates whether the potential returns from a project or investment are greater than its cost of capital, like capital budgeting, investment hurdle rate. කොට මේ වගේ දේවල් use කරගෙන අපිට මේවා තීරණය කරන්න පුළුවන්. Capital budgeting. Management uses the cost of capital as a benchmark to assess the feasibility and profitability of potential investment projects. They compare the expected returns from the project with the cost of capital. If the projected returns exceed the cost of capital, the project is considered acceptable, as it is expected to create value for the company and its investors. Then investment hurdle rate. The cost of capital also serves as a hurdle rate or minimum required rate of return for new investment. Projects with expected return below the cost of capital are typically rejected as they are not expected to generate sufficient value to meet the company's financing obligations and satisfy investors' expectations. Then valuation of the company by the investors. Investors evaluate the value of company based on its ability to generate returns and meet their required rate of return. The cost of capital provides investors with an indication of minimum return they expect to receive from investing in the company. They have discounted cash flow analysis, comparisons to market returns. The discounted cash flow analysis. Investors often employ DCF analysis to evaluate a company by discounting its projected future cash flows into their present value. The discount rate used in analysis is derived from the company's cost of capital. By discounting future cash flows at the cost of capital, investors assess whether the current market price of the company's shares is overvalued or undervalued. Then comparisons to market returns. Investors also compare company's expected return as indicated by its cost of capital to alternative investment opportunities in the market. If the company's cost of capital is higher than the returns offered by other investment with similar risks, investors may perceive the company as less attractive and may demand a higher expected return or a lower stock price. In summary, the cost of capital is essential for both management and investors. For management, it provides benchmark for evaluating investment opportunities and determining the allocation of capital. For investors, it helps assess the value of company and compare its expected returns to alternative investment opportunities. By considering the cost of capital, both management and investors aim to make informed decisions that align with their perspective, in their respective objectives and expectations. So with that, we discuss the question number 5. Now let's move into the next one, question number 6. The final one. එතකොට මේකේ බලන්න පළවෙනි question එකයි දෙවෙනි question number 6 එකේ මේ පළවෙනි එකයි දෙවෙනි එකයි දෙකම තියෙන calculations but C part එකේ අපිට questions තුනක් දීලා තිනවා එකකට දෙක බැගින් අපිට 6 marks මේකේ score කරන්න පුළුවන්. ඒත් මේකේ මම ටිකක් වැඩියෙන් විස්තර දීලා තියෙනවා මේ අහලා තියෙන ප්‍රශ්න වලට. එච්චර අපිට ඕනේ නැහැ මොකද ලකුණු දෙකක් විතරක් දෙන හින්දා. right? ඒ වුණාට අපි ටිකක් දැනගන්නටත් එක්ක මේ වගේ වෙන ප්‍රශ්නයක් ආවොත් මේ දේවල් නිසා ඔයාලට ඒ ප්‍රශ්නයකට උනත් උත්තර ලියා ගන්න පුළුවන්. right. පළවෙනි එක ඇවිල්ලා what is corporate valuation? Corporate valuation කියන්නේ මොකක්ද කියලා අහන්නේ. Corporate valuation is the process of determining the economic value of a company or business entity. It involves estimating the worth of company by considering various factors, financial metrics and valuation methods. Corporate valuation is important for various purposes, including mergers and acquisitions, financial reporting, investment analysis, and decision making. The valuation of a company typically involves assessing both its tangible and intangible assets, liabilities, cash flows, and potential for future growth. Various methods and approaches are used to arrive at valuation figures, and the choice of method depends on the purpose of the valuation, the industry, and the availability of relevant data. Some commonly used methods for corporate valuation include discounted cash flows analysis. DCF analysis estimates the present value of company's projected future cash flows. It involves forecasting future cash flows, determining an appropriate discount rate. Usually, the company's cost of capital and discounting the cash flows back to their present value. The sum of discounted cash flows represent the estimated value of the company. Then comparable company analysis, CCA. CCA compares the valuation of multiples such as price to earning ratio, price to sales ratio, etc. of a company to those of similar publicly traded companies in the same industry. The idea is that companies with similar characteristics should have similar valuation multiples. The valuation multiples of the comparable companies are then applied to the company being valued to estimate its value. Then comparable transaction analysis. This method looks at the prices paid for similar companies in recent mergers and acquisitions. By analyzing the valuation multiples or the purchase prices of comparable transactions as estimate of the company's value can be derived. Asset-based valuation. This method focuses on the valuation of companies' tangible and intangible assets. It involves calculating the net asset value or NAV by subtracting the company's liabilities from the fair market value of its assets. Then market capitalization. Market capitalization is a simple valuation method that multiplies the company's current stock price by the number of outstanding shares. It represents the value assigned to the company by the market participants. It's important to note that corporate valuation is not an exact science and involves various assumptions and estimates. Different valuation methods may yield different results, and a comprehensive analysis often considers multiple approaches to arrive at a reasonable valuation range. Additionally, valuation is subject to market conditions, investor sentiment, and other external factors that can impact the perceived value of a company. Then next one, part 2. Briefly explain the reasons for corporate valuation. Corporate valuation serves several important purposes. The reasons for conducting valuation can vary depending on the specific context and stakeholders involved. Here are some common reasons for performing corporate valuation. Corporate valuation කරන්න අපිට තියෙන reasons මොනවාද? First one, mergers and acquisitions, then investment analysis, financial reporting, corporate finance and capital budgeting, initial public offerings, then litigation and disputes, internal decision making. ඔය දේවල් වලට තමයි මේක වැදගත් වෙන්නේ. බලමු මේවා එකින් එක කතා කරලා. Mergers and acquisitions, M&A. Valuation is crucial in M&A transactions to determine the fair value of the target company. Both the acquiring and target companies need to assess the worth of business to negotiate a fair purchase price and evaluate the potential synergies and benefits of the transaction. Investment analysis. Investors, both individual and institutional, perform valuation to assess the attractiveness of investing in a particular company. Valuation helps investors evaluate the potential returns, risk, and growth prospects of a company to make informed investment decisions. Then financial reporting. Valuation is essential for financial reporting purposes, such as preparing financial statements, determine the value of assets and liabilities, and complying with accounting standards. Valuation may be required for various purposes, including goodwill impairment testing, fair value measurements, and determining the value of intangible assets. Corporate finance and capital budgeting. Valuation is used by companies in capital budgeting decisions, where they evaluate potential investment projects and determine their financial viability. By comparing the present value of expected cash flows with the initial investment cost, companies can assess the profitability and feasibility of investment opportunities. Then initial public offerings. Companies seeking to go public often require a valuation to determine the offering price of their shares. Valuation helps determine the company's market capitalization, which is essential in the initial public offerings processes and setting the initial price range for the shares to be offered to the public. Litigation and disputes. Valuation is often required in legal settings for various purposes, such as shareholder disputes, divorce settlement, tax assessment, and damage calculations. Valuation provides an objective assessment of the value of a company or its assets to resolve legal disputes or determine fair compensation. Internal decision making. Valuation is used by companies for internal decision making, such as evaluating potential investments, assessing the value of strategic initiatives, determining the value of intellectual property, and evaluating business performance. It helps management make informed decisions that align with the company's strategic objectives. These are just a few examples of reasons for conducting corporate valuation. Ultimately, valuation provides a qualitative assessment of the value of a company or its assets, enabling stakeholders to make informed decisions and understand the financial implications of various transactions and situations. Right. අපි ඊට පස්සේ අපේ third question එකට යනවා. එතකොට මේකෙන් අහන්නේ briefly explain corporate valuation approaches. Corporate valuation වලට අපිට තියෙන විවිධ approaches මොනවාද කියන එක අහන්නේ මේකෙන්. Right. Corporate valuation approaches are different methods or models used to estimate the value of a company. Here are brief explanation of some common corporate valuation approaches. First one, income approach. The income approach focuses on the future cash flows generated by the company. It estimates the present value of expected cash flows by discounting them at an appropriate discount rate. The most widely used method within the income approach is discounted cash flow analysis. Discounted cash flow analysis considers the timing and risk of cash flows to determine the company's value. Okay. Next approach, market approach. The market approach determines the value of company by comparing it to similar companies in the market. This approach utilizes valuation multiples such as price to earnings or PEO ratio, price to sales or PS ratio, or enterprise value to EBITDA ratio. By comparing these multiples with those of comparable companies, an estimate of the company's value can be derived. Then next approach, the asset approach. The asset approach focuses on the company's tangible and intangible assets. It determines the value of the company based on its net assets value. The NAV or the net asset value is calculated by subtracting the company's liabilities from the fair market value of its assets. This approach is particularly relevant for companies with significant tangible assets such as real estate or manufacturing companies. Then market capitalization approach. The market capitalization approach values a company based on its market capitalization, which is the total market value of its outstanding shares. This approach reflects the price at which the company is currently traded in the stock market. It is commonly used for publicly traded companies and is calculated by multiplying the company's share price by the number of outstanding shares. Approach number 5, option pricing. The option pricing approach is applied when valuing companies with significant real options or embedded options. Real options refer to the flexibility a company has in market strategic decisions, such as entering new markets, expanding operations, or abandoning projects. This approach applies option pricing models, such as Black-Scholes model, to estimate the value of the real options. Next one, comparable transaction approach. The comparable transactions approach considers the prices paid for similar companies in recent mergers and acquisitions. By analyzing the valuation multiples for the purchase prices of comparable transactions, an estimate of value company's value can be derived. This approach provides insights into the market value of companies operating in the same industry or with similar characteristics. It is important to note that each valuation approach has its strengths and limitations, and the choice of approach depends on various factors, including the nature of the company, available data, industry dynamics, and the purpose of the valuation. In practice, combination of this approach is often used to gain a comprehensive understanding of the company's value. Right. So with that, we have come to an end of our discussion about the paper of 2021 batch. ඉතින් ඒකත් එක්ක අපේ මේ FM paper එක ගිය අවුරුද්දේ FM paper එකේ discussion එක end එකට ආවා. So I think that you might get good answers for your past paper calculus past papers attempt කරනකොට හොඳ answers ටිකක් මගේ මේකෙන් හම්බුනා කියලා පාත් කරනවා. So with that I'm going to wind up this session for now. ඉතින් මේකත් එක්ක paper එක කතා කරන අවසන් කරනවා. And I would like to invite to subscribe my channel Edusilon YouTube channel if you like. ඉතින් ඔයාලට ආරාධනා කරනවා මගේ channel එක subscribe කරන්න කියලා. තාම subscribe කරලා නැත්නම් මේ ඉක්මනටම අනිත් papers වලත් answers ටික මේ විදිහටම discuss කරලා video එකක් upload කරන්න. So thank you very much.